having skin is gross. Jacob Elordi's eyebrow piercing. I found a pregnant dog on the freeway. Twilight. And it's gay. Wrap me in their wet little arms. I wouldn't have been able to recognize my own ass. One of the hormone monsters from Big Mouth. And I'm taking critical damage. It seems like they wanted to kill me. I am terrified of feeling dumb. Put me through the f***ing ringer. Hi friends, we're here to talk about my January and February wrap up for books and movies, and my March TBR/TBW.
Hello? Hello? Can anybody hear my voice? Anybody out there? Anybody hears me, please respond.
So it turns out starting the channel in the middle of the month made for kind of an awkward posting schedule, so I'm smashing my wrap-ups together for the first 2 months of the year and my March TBR, one second, for some book stats. In January, I read 13 books. 12 were fantasy and 1 was sci-fi. And in February, I read 8 books, 5 fantasy, 1 sci-fi, 1 self-help, 1 memoir. I wanted to start off the year on a good note, so in January, I read the entire Wayward Children series by Seanan McGuire. Minus the first book. I read the first book last year, Every Heart a Doorway, which is 5 out of 5. Great. As someone who's more than just a little bit obsessed with portal fantasy, with the thought of slipping through time and space and realms, with the thought that there might be a way to accidentally fall through a crack in the world and into some fantastical, magical land, I can't believe I had never read these. But also I'm just kind of glad that I didn't, because Seanan McGuire puts out a new one of these every January, and I cannot imagine if I had had to wait a year in between these. I can't even fathom now that I have to wait 10 more months for book 10. So I won't go through each one of these individually because I'd get into spoiler territory really quickly. But basically the first book starts with a group of children who come from various backgrounds where they were not okay living with their circumstances at home. At some point each kid stumbles upon a door that takes them elsewhere to a place that was seemingly made as a perfect world for that specific kid. For example, there's a girl who fell into an oceanic world and lived as a mermaid, but not in like a cutesy Ariel kind of way. They kill people. There's a girl who went to a spider world. There's a guy who went to a land where everyone is a skeleton and having skin is gross and weird. They eventually find themselves spit out and at this school with other kids who've been through the same experiences. And I know I'm saying the word children a lot in these, but these are not kids' books. They're not YA. Some of the books deal fairly peripherally with heavy subject matter, but if you were like me and you were a little bit too into the ideas in Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, Narnia, I'm begging you to read these. They're all like 160 to 200 pages and they're perfect, and I would hire Seanan McGuire to live in my house and tell me bedtime stories every night. As for specific ratings, Down Among the Sticks and Bones got a solid 5. Beneath the Sugar Sky got a 4.5. In an Absent Dream got a 4.75. Come Tumbling Down got a 4.75. Across the Green Grass Fields got a 4.25. Where the Drowned Girls Go got a 4.75. Lost in the Moment and Found got a 4.5. And Misladen Parts Half Known got a 4.5. So nothing got less than a 4.25, which hopefully gives you kind of an idea as to how deeply I feel about these books. The next 3 books I'm only counting as books because I was able to log them on Goodreads. They're these like 35-page interlude stories that accompany the Wayward Children series. They're cute, they're tiny. Here they are. We don't need to talk about them. Up next is a book that put me through the ringer in the absolute best way possible. This is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Motar and Max Gladstone. There are a few things I cannot resist in a book. 1, I love time travel. 2, I love when a book hurts me. And 3, I love when I am confused beyond all reason for at least the first part of a book. I love having to stop everything else around me and concentrate with my entire little pea brain on the weirdness that's flooding out of a book. This book gave me all three. And it's gay. I mean, come on. This Is How You Lose the Time War is about two agents on two different sides of a war. They can climb up and down through eons, through countries, planets, universes, and they slip through time and space trying to catch the other. And they start writing each other letters, but instead of ink on paper, they're writing to each other through things like lava flows as Atlantis sinks. Inside the computer god of a post-technological planet. In the rings of a 1,000-year-old tree. The letters get more intimate as they start to fall in love while they're communicating through the ashes of pruned timelines and fallen civilizations. This is pure, insane romance, and it's the most obvious 5-star I've given this year so far. Last up in January, I read Thorn Hedge by T. Kingfisher, which I was sure I was going to fall in love with because I read Nettle and Bone in the fall and I gave it a 4.75, but unfortunately, not so much. I'm learning that Nettle and Bone is pretty much as cozy fantasy as I can get without getting a little bit of the ick from the cutesy factor of it all. Thorn Hedge is obviously not YA, but the vibe just came off so young to me. It's a Sleeping Beauty retelling, and we're following a young changeling fae woman who's been tasked to guard a sleeping girl in a tower. She meets a man who helps her realize she needs to change her life, blah blah blah. I've seen a few reviews on this book that call it dark and horrific, and I don't know if I'm just desensitized to like horror-based content or what, but there was nothing horrific in this book. Like nothing even close to what I would call horrific. It was just underwhelming for me. I did not connect to Toadling at all, but I did love her slimy, gross river mud monster family. I wanted the green teeth to wrap me in their wet little arms and rock me to sleep. So unfortunately Thorn Hedge got a 3.25 from me, but take that with a grain of salt because everyone else seems to love it. Then I started off February with a book I've been dreading for a long time. And for what? That's right. This big bitch right here. I wanted to make sure that I read Dune before the second movie came out, and I was so in my head thinking that this was going to be some boring slog of a book. And I was right. For the first 130 so pages, the first little chunk was a lot to get through. Lots of setup and character introduction and rote conversation. But getting through that and to the other side really had me feeling fully immersed in this world. And once I finished, I rewatched the first movie. And it made it feel so much more important to me personally. As if Denis created it just for my little eyeballs. There's not much to talk about here that hasn't been said about Dune. So 5 stars, and I cannot wait to read Dune Messiah. Next, in February, I read my only self-help book of the year so far, Mating in Captivity by Esther Perel. Unfortunately, I don't think I can talk a whole lot about this book on here. I don't know the sensitivity rules on this website yet, and I don't want to get shut down by Daddy YouTube. So what I'll say is, good book, 4 stars. There's a reason that Esther Perel is one of the world's leading therapists in her special field of bedroom-related activities. Next I read Starling House by Alex E. Harrow, and oh, there it is. And just like the Thorn Hedge situation, I assumed I would love it because I loved Harrow's book, The 10,000 Doors of January, because I got what I love. I got portal fantasy, I got travel. Unfortunately, I was wrong. We're following a woman who is not well off financially, living out of a motel in a supposedly cursed town and taking care of her younger brother, and she's been drawn to this creepy, crumbling gothic mansion her whole life, and then she winds up procuring a job at said crumbling mansion, and things go on from there. Starling House had cool elements and a lot of potential. We love gothic crumbling mansions. We love scary cryptozoological animals that vanish into the mist that haunts the town. That sounds so cool. We also love that the main character is a woman in her late 20s, because it feels like every book heroine is 19, and I simply cannot relate to a 19-year-old person. What sucks here is that Alexi Harrow has gorgeous writing. She's obviously incredibly talented, but the plot just didn't pull enough weight to make it great. The ending could have been so good if only it were completely different. It felt like a very cartoonish ending. Also, it was noted no less than 25 times how ugly the male main character is. And like, I get wanting to subvert expectations and not have your protagonists all be, you know, shiny and hot. But damn, girl, I don't need to be reminded every 5 pages how awful this poor boy is to look at. 3.5 stars. Unfortunately, it only got worse from there because next I read Juniper and Thorn by Ava Reid. This was my first Ava Reid book, so I didn't have anything else to base it off of. I was, again, a fool for getting my hopes up. I shan't let it happen again because these books keep disappointing me and I'm taking critical damage. I hate to be such a hater, but this was labeled as gothic horror and it was giving neither gothic nor horror. Sure, it's dark and gross, but horror is definitely not the right label here. We're following Marlinchin. I'm probably not pronouncing that right. Marlinchin, who along with her sisters make up a trio of low-level witches who are kept locked away in their house by their evil father. They see clients at home and they sneak out at night to go to the theater. Marlinchin falls in love. There are weird unalivings happening around town, and the town is also plagued by xenophobia and a social structure that's never really explained very well. I just didn't connect or care about any of it. Oops. I did not vibe with this on any level, and for some reason, once again, I've read a book where I'm reminded of the main character's horrifying ugliness every 3 pages. And that's in comparison to her sisters, her 2 sisters, whose only personality traits are being hot and mean. There are trigger warnings all over this book. There's a lot of warnings to be had here, which I generally never flinch away from, but I need to look after my own people here. I need you to listen very closely. Emetophobia girlies, stay away. Stay away from this book if you have emetophobia. And if you don't know what that is, you can Google the word. I'm so serious. If you are like me with that particular phobia, you do not want any part of this book. Juniper and Thorn got a 2.5 stars from me, but honestly, I should have gone lower. Next, I read a book that I cannot understand for the life of me why I purchased it, why I own it. I don't remember buying it. The Rural Diaries by Hilary Burton Morgan. Now, I so rarely read memoirs, and I had no idea who Hilary Burton Morgan was, aside from the fact that she's married to Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who should actually be married to me. Apparently she was on One Tree Hill, which I also did not watch. So why do I own this book? Who knows? But I'm glad I do, because this was the perfect cute little thing to offset the 3 bad fantasy books that I had just read. Hilary weaves a luxuriously rustic little story about meeting her husband, popping out a few kids, and moving to a beautiful farm in upstate New York where she gets to raise a bunch of animals, paint furniture, open a candy store, and kiss Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I listen, I usually get my escapism from fantasy books, but what better fantasy is there than raising cows with Negan? I've seen a few negative reviews talking about her blessed life and complaining that the book is not relatable, but why are you looking for relatability in a celebrity memoir? I don't understand those ones. 4.25 stars. And then in a little bit of a switch up, after I finished The Rural Diaries, I found a pregnant dog on the freeway. And then I brought her home. And so I needed some very mid-tier fantasies that were low effort but still entertaining enough to read while I slept on my office floor with a pregnant stray for 10 days. And these books delivered. Pregnant dog. Delivered. I'm going to talk about all of these in one because those 10 days were so stressful and blurry that I wouldn't have been able to recognize my own ass, much less who did what in any of these books at any point. I remember that the first book in the duology was pretty boring, hence the 2.25 stars I gave it. I figured out the plot twist super early on in the book before it's even given away, which wouldn't have been difficult anyways considering the title of the second book gives it away. Our main character Losa is setting herself up to take over from her father, the titular pirate king. She finds herself on board a rival pirate ship, meets a hot assistant captain, falls in insta-love. At some point she reunites with her Siren Queen mother, and I honest to God can't even remember if it happens in the first book or the second book, which I do know was slightly more interesting and earned a 3 stars for me. That is pretty much everything I need to say about these books. It's so young. They skew so young. Wendy Darling is a feminist retelling of Peter Pan in which Peter returns, finds Wendy grown up, and steals her daughter Jane instead. Wendy, having been put through a lifetime of gaslighting and psychological and sometimes physical evils at a mental health facility to rid her of her fantasies, has to remember how to fly so she can rescue Jane from Peter, who turns out to be a little psychopath. The book is pretty dark. It also puts in some work to shine a light on the wrongs that the original Peter Pan did towards Indigenous people. Still pretty mid, but less mid than these two, so it gets a 3.5. The 3 of these books are pretty forgettable, if you couldn't tell by my blustery synopses on them, but honestly, they are the kind of the absolute perfect books for when you are harboring a pregnant freeway pit bull and you can't leave one room for 10 days and you just have to slowly lose your mind on the floor. So that's it for books. Oh, the sun just came out real strong. Okay, well that's not cute. Alright, whatever. For movies, in January I watched 10 movies, 6 rewatches and 4 that were new to me, 3 dramas, 2 comedies, 2 action adventure, 2 fantasies, and 1 sci-fi. It's a lot easier to fit movies into multiple categories, but I'm going with the overarching. Yeah, I'm trying to categorize here, so just deal with it. Also, as a warning to anyone who's new to my channel, which is all of you, because this is my second video ever, all of you, there's probably 2 people watching this right now, and one of them is my mother. Hi mom, love you. Anyways, as a warning, on Letterboxd, the movie app, Letterboxd, I become unhinged. I become one of the hormone monsters from Big Mouth. I become Gollum, and all the hot people in movies are my One Ring. So if I put up a screenshot somewhere over here or somewhere over here of my Letterboxd reviews while I'm doing this, and you think, that seems inappropriate, mind your business. And also, I'm sorry. So I started January out on the absolute perfect note by rewatching She's the Man, in which Amanda Bynes pretends to be her brother so she can play soccer at an all-boys boarding school, and I watched it with apparently the only person on the planet who had never seen it before, which was delightful. I imagine it felt the same as a parent taking their child to Disneyland for the first time. Anyway, in this house, we love and support Amanda Bynes. 4.5 stars. Next, I rewatched Triple Frontier, a movie I believe is about a group of former special ops guys who go to South America to steal millions of dollars from a crime lord, but I wouldn't actually know because I was too busy staring at these two to think about the plot or listen to a single line of dialogue. 4 stars. Up next, I rewatched Saltburn. We're following Oliver, the love of my life, as he hangs out at his rich friend's palace over the summer, and chaos ensues. I'm sure you've seen the memes. This movie has everything. Drama, Jacob Elordi's eyebrow piercing, rich people disconnected from reality, bathtubs. I'm not going to say a whole lot about this because I don't want to spoil the plot, but this is an unhinged movie, and I actually cannot post my Letterboxd review here because the words I typed might get me demonetized before I even have the chance to get monetized. 5 stars. Then we had the craziest ice storm scene in apparently like 50 years, and our power was out, so I watched I rewatched the only movie that was downloaded on my laptop, which is fine because it turned out to be Almost Famous. We're following a teenage boy in the 1960s who lies about his age to travel around the country with a rock band that's having difficulties getting accustomed to newfound fame, and I don't care about the plot or the band or the boy and his trials and tribulations, because Kate Hudson is absolutely everything in this movie. Everything. Penny Lane is the golden god. And she really makes me believe that it's all happening. 4.5 stars. The ice storm persisted. So I had to move into a tiny hotel room with all 4 of my animals for like 6 days. So I watched a bunch of extremely cable movies on the hotel TV. In quick succession, I rewatched Thor Ragnarok. Still one of the best Marvel movies. Still absolutely insane of them to have Tessa Thompson looking like that and Cate Blanchett looking like that, all in a 5-minute time span. It seems like they wanted to kill me. 5 stars. Then I watched Love and Monsters for the first time, where Dylan O'Brien is in love and fights monsters, I think. I barely remember this movie. I know that he lives in a bunker in an apocalypse and he kills monsters while walking to the ocean to find a girl that he knew for like 2 months when he was 16. Honestly, the most made-for-cable movie ever, but it was like a fine way to pass the time in a hotel. 3 stars, but that might be high. Okay, actually, this is one I remember even less. Day Shift with Jamie Foxx, Dave Franco, and Snoop Dogg as part of a vampire hunters union. Letterboxd says that I watched it, but I think she's lying. 2 stars. Pass. And then to get the bad taste out of my mouth, I had to watch a movie of high standards, of culture, a thought-provoking masterpiece, a real vampire movie. Twilight. Obviously Twilight. I'm sure we'll talk about this more at a later date, in a later movie, but I am a die-hard, unapologetic Twilight girl, and I can quite literally quote the first movie front to back, top to bottom. If you have complaints about this movie, I'm not the person to talk to about them. I have logged Twilight 9 times on Letterboxd just in the last 2 years. This is a perfect film with a perfect soundtrack and perfect acting. 5 stars. Last up in January, I watched American Fiction about an author who panders to black stereotypes and accidentally becomes an overnight sensation. This was good, but not great. I can't talk about specifics for spoilers, but there's something that happened just one single time that I wish was either played out more through the entire movie or cut completely, because it kind of confused the vibe a little bit. I love Jeffrey Wright, but Sterling K. Brown as the chaos and the comedic relief was the best part of the film, and I'm thrilled that he got an Oscar nom, even though it's definitely gonna go to Oppenheimer. But Robert Downey Jr., it's okay. It's fine. 3.5 stars. February took a less movies turn for me because I had the Freeway Dog for half the month, and I wound up only watching 2 movies for the whole month, which is my lowest monthly number in like at least a year and a half. So this part should be fast. I watched The Marvels, which had 0 effect on my life and my mind, except zapping an hour and 45 minutes away from me. Okay, that was a little harsh, but it just wasn't good. Again, we'll talk about this at length at some point. I could go on and on about the oversaturation of Marvel and what it's doing to their content that's been put out recently. That's coming from a huge Marvel nerd who would defend 90% of it until I collapsed. The Marvels was 2.5 stars, and I was being generous. And then after I read Wendy Darling, I got the urge to watch the OG Peter Pan, which I haven't seen in at least a decade, to see how it stands up against the test of time. And spoiler alert, it does and it doesn't. I gave it a 4.5 stars for the nostalgia factor and the magic of it, but oh boy, the stereotypes that I obviously didn't clock as a child. It's not pretty. It's really not pretty. From here on out, I'll go more in depth with TBRs/TBWs, but I'm gonna keep this short and sweet because we're like a third of the way through the month already. So I'm gonna gloss over things pretty much for this one. I have 9 books on my TBR that I'm hoping to read this month. First up, I want to make sure that I read The 3-Body Problem before the TV show comes out on Netflix on March 21st. Netflix, not a sponsor. I'm nervous about it because, well, it's not that crazy. It's like a little over 400 pages. It's not that long. But I've heard it described a few different times as one of the most confusing sci-fi novels that they've read. And while I do love being confused, I am terrified of feeling dumb. It honestly doesn't happen often that I'm confused in a book to the point where I feel like I'm dumb, but nervous that this might be one of them. But I refuse to watch the show before I read the book, so it's necessary. I also want to read Dune Messiah. Like I said, I read Dune earlier this year and I got super immersed. I didn't want to read Messiah until I'd seen Dune Part 2, the movie, which now that I have, I get to read Messiah. And I'm excited and I'm happy. The third sci-fi is a novella called A Short Stay in Hell by Stephen L. Peck, which, spoiler alert, I started and finished on March 1st. It's only about 104 pages. I had never heard of it, but I got it recommended to me on Instagram. And now you get to hear all about it in my March wrap-up later this month. Oh, was that a spoiler? Was that a hint? Maybe it's a hint how I rated it. As for the 3 fantasy books, those are a secret. Sorry. I'm doing my first ever reading vlog with them, which is crazy and scary, and I'm nervous. But it means you're gonna have to wait a few weeks to know what they are. Sorry. The final 3 books on my TBR are Almond, a translated fiction about a boy whose emotions don't quite show up in the way that they're supposed to. The Bell Jar, which I've had for years and haven't read because I'm scared that I will hold that mirror up and see too much of myself in there. And When You're Ready, This Is How You Heal by Brianna Wiest to offset the damage that the bell jar causes me. I have 13 movies on my to be watched list for March, and I have split them up into 3 categories. For funsies, for crying, and for being a smart and well-rounded human being who can talk to people about current media events. For funsies, we have Elemental, which I've heard is average, but my brother loves it, so I'm doing my duty. Elysium, because it's leaving Netflix after this month, and I'm ashamed that there's a Matt Damon mid-sci-fi movie that I haven't seen. Godzilla and Kong: The New Empire, because I'm a sucker for franchises, and I haven't gone deep enough into Godzilla lore. The Greatest Showman, because I'm a musical theater nerd, and I get to watch it with my mom, who is the musical theater nerd superior. No One Will Save You, because I hate that there's a horror movie that my boyfriend has seen that I haven't. Self-Reliance, because this is a Jake Johnson fan account. And Tenet, because I want to understand what Io Edebiri meant when she said Tenet time travel rules in that one interview. In our being a well-rounded person category, we have 2 extremely embarrassing movies. Oppenheimer and Poor Things. And I don't know how it's possible that I haven't watched these movies, and I don't want to talk about it. I missed the chance to see Oppenheimer, and there was a lot going on. There was a lot going on. There was a lot going on. Anyway, and for our crying category, we have After Sun, about an adult woman looking back at her childhood and her relationship with her father. All of Us Strangers, about a man who begins a relationship and gets to peer into his childhood home at his parents 30 years prior when they were still living. Past Lives, about a woman who reconnects with a childhood friend and delves into the choices that make up your life and all the lives you could have lived. And Portrait of a Lady on Fire, about a woman in the 1700s who is hired to paint a portrait of another woman as they illegally fall in love by the seaside. And reading those 4 synopses back to back makes me feel like I'm making a bad decision for my mental health. What am I doing? So that's it. That's it. If you're here Thanks for sticking around. If you're here, it means we've both survived my second video ever. If no one is here and I'm just talking to myself, that's cool too. You know, that's fine. I talk to myself every day, so why should it be different on the internet? But if you're out there, if you can hear me, I hope you have a lovely day, and I hope I see you again soon. Made for kind of an awkward... That's not right. By Amal El disappointing and sometimes really gross. Oh, hello. In which Peter returns, find Wendy. Find Wendy. Are you shitting me? Which and then to get the oh, go away. The sun. 9 books on... Why do my hands look so weird? What the Damn it. Damn it. This light. This is gonna suck at it.